This video is somewhat pointless, but I actually think it's kind of neat. Normally when you're doing a retro throwback, it's got to be for a reason, like Retrovision and the Diablo 20th anniversary. I guess the most retro tie-in I can really think of for this is that the Tomb of Sagaris first appeared 21 years and 2 months ago in Warcraft 2, and it's now going to be the new raid in patch 7.2. Now what is this? Well, simply it's a mixture of shaders and UI stuff that makes World of Warcraft, for purely the sake of novelty, feel like a early 90s PC game. Now this is almost all based off the excellent work of a Reddit user called HeartGoYonder, whose post I came across a while ago when browsing the WoW UI subreddit. I then made some custom weak ores to fit around the really cool template that he made. And why? Well, just for the novelty. Coming from a coding and game dev background, it's really fun to tinker around with stuff like this, especially since I'm working currently on the WoW voice acting and narrative overhaul mod that I talked about just over a month ago on the channel. We're actually looking to launch the first episode and a Patreon concurrently in March, and we're currently beginning our casting process tomorrow actually, with a few days of auditions, and then we'll be moving into some recording sessions. All pretty exciting, but more on that in a future video.
If you come across any kobolds, kill them and I'll reward you for the candles. No amount of gold is worth getting my ass kicked. You killed my pups, my spies, my goblins, and now my orcs. Kurtok will mount your head on a pike.
I thought that this was a very interesting throwback to how games used to be, doubly so since it's an era of games that I didn't really have much of an opportunity to play. One big thing that you'll notice is the viewport is actually smaller than the game window, and a lot of it is taken up by a UI that if you look at it, it's all wood and stuff, it's meant to feel really in-universe. This is a throwback to an era where developers were constantly wrestling with hardware limitations, making the actual game window a sort of, a box encircled by a UI panel was often something that had to be done to cut down on the performance requirements so it would run well on the computers of the day, and so they could squeeze more graphical shine into that smaller space. Of course, we are rendering far more colors and using a vertex count that would have been unheard of in the early 90s. One of HeartGoYonder's pixel shaders basically converts WoW's 24-bit color down to 16 bits. He said that 8 would have been ideal, but he ran into issues where WoW's color space was shifted towards the grey end a little bit too much. He then implemented an open source scanline shader via Reshade to emulate the visuals created by older display hardware. Pretty damn cool. This is quite similar to the process that Blizzard themselves would have had to go through when creating the bundle of shaders that they referred to as Retrovision for the Diablo 3 anniversary event that took place earlier this year. Now after doing all that, he then looked at old games, especially Warcraft 2, and looked at how their UI was laid out. So he then extracted some files, threw together an XML template, and that's what created essentially most of what you see on the screen. For my part, I hopped in with weak ores and put a layer of that on top of things. This created the player and target health bars. I then used KG panels to create an admittedly rubbish looking panel for the chat box, but let's be real, I wasn't going to spend ages doing like custom textures for that. Just a quick project, I then did roughly the same for the action bars that you see on the bottom of the screen, and just a few tweaks like that. I then used Move Anything to essentially make things like the map and the character pane appear in the correct part of the screen. Additionally, an add-on that I didn't use but would work awesomely for this is Storyline. Now, the last issue here is that it still plays like a modern game. It's really smooth, it runs at a high frame rate, and the controls are really responsive. It would be a lot harder to emulate how an older game would feel. We'd have to probably throw in some input lag, make the animations less responsive, and slow down the pace of the combat for things to be a bit more clunky. Now, I don't really recommend doing this yourself if you're coming at it purely from a player perspective, but if you want to mess around with add-on stuff, or, just tinker around with it, check out the link in the description. I guess I just sort of saw this project and thought it was really cool, really unique, and it definitely deserved some recognition. One issue you might have getting this working is Reshade. You need to use version 1, not the more recent versions 2 or 3, but assuming you can get that going, it's as simple as just following the installation instructions that are on the WoW interface page. Overall, this was actually a really just fun afternoon of messing around with World of Warcraft for me, and I think it's especially good if you are a bit of a tinkerer, you want to, just mess around with a retro throwback sort of thing. Overall, it's just a fun thing that you can do with World of Warcraft that well, isn't playing World of Warcraft. And of course, this isn't something that I think anyone will really be playing the game with. It's more just a bit of fun, I suppose. But that is it for this video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.